Welcome to the Elijah Winfrey Show, where each week Eli and Toni chat with guests about autism, homelessness, underprivileged youth, and ways they're giving back to their community. The dynamic duo also answer your email questions and get you caught up on their past weekend. So, sit back, relax, and get ready for a terrific show. Here are your hosts, Elijah Winfrey and Toni Boucher.
Hello, folks, and welcome to the Elijah Winfrey Show. I'm your host, Elijah Winfrey, joined each week by my fabulous, wonderful, and super talented co-host, Toni Boucher. My video is finally fixed. Last week, we had a little technical issue with my video. My camera was playing tricks on me, but now I'm back up on the screen. We got a terrific show. First show of the new year, Toni. I don't know how you are with resolutions. I used to be big on them, but not so much anymore. I just try to focus on being a good person every day, try to get better. I still believe in them for those that do them, but how do you feel about resolutions, and how has your week been? How did you celebrate the new year, or do you celebrate?
So, yeah, as far as New Year resolutions go, I used to be really particular about doing a lot of my goal setting for the new year. This year, I'd already had, goals in place that I'm just going to continue and follow through with. I do like goals. I personally make lists, set up things I'd like to reach towards. And it's really interesting. Sometimes I'll come back to those lists, I'll set it aside for a little while and come back, oh yeah, I did that and that. So the lists are my big kind of way of structuring and establishing my goals. So, but this year I had them all kind of just continuation of what I've been doing for, a while. So for New Year, we don't really celebrate New Year's here. I think we played chess, and
you're a good chess player?
Yeah, just for fun. I'm not any good at it. Especially now, when I was younger, I was, had the concentration and attention. Now it's more just, I taught the kids how to play, and then it's, it's more for them.
Right.
But yeah, and so I think we played chess and went to bed before, midnight, listened to the fireworks from bed. But yeah, my family's never really been big at celebrating New Year.
I see. How's the center doing?
It's going well. It's going slowly, and we're just really getting the people there trained and making sure they're clear on their roles and how they can fully use the center. One thing that I was really cautious about is not having 10 or 15 people coming to the center all the time at the beginning, because we want to work through any kinks or issues slowly, so that it's a positive experience for people. And so far it's been really a positive experience for the people who are participating. We're getting lots of great feedback, and people are using the center every day. And so that's been a lot of fun to see. And they're using it for different things. And they're learning how to support each other with their goals, and to work as a community for, for that goal attainment. So that's pretty neat.
Very good. Very good. That's great to hear. Great to hear.
So,
very nice.
how have you been? We haven't talked.
Yeah, it's been busy, getting back into the role as a paraeducator. It's
a transition.
Yeah,
for the kids.
It is. So it's always an adjustment when, they've been away for an extended period of time. So you have to kind of once again go over routines, expectations, and it feels like I'm always learning, right? Like there's some para educators there that are really good, and I try to lean on them a lot because I feel like I have to relearn some things when I come back as well. But things are going well. I'm preparing for my trip to Georgia, which is it's going to be busier than I thought. I did hope that I could come and see you. I don't know if that's going to happen, but we are getting ready for that. And I'm hoping that the weather is going to be okay leaving out of Seattle. I know we're expecting some snow here at the end of the week, and makes me a little nervous when I'm at the airport.
Yeah,
So,
that's very legitimate.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, this time of year, December and January, snow can make or break a flight.
Indeed. Indeed. And so I am getting ready for that and promoting the book, a little bit more. And that's something that I'm trying to get used to, promoting myself in the book. Like that's something that I never really had to do, playing golf and doing other things. I never felt like I needed to promote something that I was doing, and it's a process because you have to kind of talk about yourself. And I'm kind of like, I'm just Eli. I'm just a humble dude, just trying to write a book, But they want to hear a little bit more, and so it's been fun. It's been challenging at times because there have been days where I'm like, I don't want to do it. I don't want to promote. Like I'm done promoting. Just So
the pictures are so precious. The illustrator you chose did such a good job of creating lovable characters.
Indeed.
If listeners haven't checked the book out yet, it's just adorable. You can go on Amazon. Is there any other place they can get it?
Yeah, it's on lulu.com. See, that's awesome.
Lulu?
Yeah. It's been a good process. So I've been busy doing that, and family's doing well. From a health standpoint,
I gotta plug in my computer so it doesn't die. So keep talking.
Okay.
I'm not running away.
Okay. Family's doing well. My workout routine has been pretty consistent over the last month and a half, and I am pretty happy about that. That process for me is very important, as many of you know. You got to be able to stay consistent in treating your body well, and that's something that I really work hard at, thanks to the military. So I'm able to kind of keep some sort of routine and stay mentally and physically sharp as I try to maneuver these things. Sleep, on the other hand, has been and always will be the issue for me. There are days where I don't know how I am pushing through with the lack of sleep that I'm getting. And to the listeners, it's not bragging, because I say this all the time. It's not healthy that this is happening to me this way. And we've tried a lot of things. We've tried the sleep apnea places and different types of sleep aids. And I think it's just something that, I'm just going to have to deal with, moving forward. But it's not like I don't try, because I do go and get into bed and lay down. I'm able to lay down and relax. It's just staying asleep is the issue, because I could fall asleep, but I can't stay asleep. So, but
that's my issue too. And I'm up at 4:00 every day.
Yeah.
And so it's like 4 hours of sleep. I don't know how many hours you're getting, but I'm in the same boat as you.
Yeah, about the same. We're kindred spirits in that regard, for sure.
Not what we want.
No, not at all. Toni, today I wanted to talk a bit about some myths that have been linked to the autism spectrum, and I don't hear them as much as I used to, but I do hear them quite a bit regarding love and relationships. There's this misconception that, if you're on the spectrum, autism spectrum, that you can't form loving relationships, and you can't love at the same degree as others. And I know when you were with I think it was the Autism Broadcasting Network, there was a series. I don't know if it was a series, but I think you created this this chat about this topic. If I'm not mistaken, dating, I think it was, and I think in reading some of these articles that were sent to me regarding children and adults not being able to love to the same degree as others, I struggled with that in the beginning because I didn't really know if that was true or not. I don't think it is. There are some studies that have shown that that I am kind of right, and you have to be careful when you.
What is the assumption?
What the assumption? The assumption is children and adults on the autism spectrum can't love and form loving relationships, or to the same degree as others, and you have to be. I know for me, I have to be careful when I read some of these articles because some of them can be very misleading. Is there? I guess what I'm asking is do you believe that that's a myth, that you can't love and have relationships?
Yeah, I do believe that's a myth. So, there's a wide range in all people in like how we experience love, the depth of that emotion that we feel, and I think oftentimes people on the spectrum feel it more deeply and more passionately.
Right.
So I have, for example, talked with people on the spectrum who were deeply loyal beyond what most, typical people would be to a relationship and felt that love very passionately. So whether that would be in romantic relationships or friendships. So I know people who have been in friendships or in romantic relationships where the other person, either they moved or they broke up or whatever, and it took years and years and years for that autistic person to get over it. When maybe somebody was in a 6-month, dated for 6 months, and that other person moved on, got married, moved on with their life, and that person 5 years later, after dating for 6 months, is still not ready to let go of the relationship. So there's a lot of passion and deep, deep emotions. Sometimes, people on the spectrum can feel things less or differently. There's, this thing called alexithymia, where a lot of times we process emotions differently. But a lot of times there's going to be misunderstandings. So, for example, I have a lot of situations where families will come to me and say, my child is very insensitive when it comes to dealing with death, for example. Mm-hmm. Like, my child's, their grandma died, and they wanted to see what the body, looked like after rigor mortis. And the issue is that when people, like, for example, I'm not familiar with the studies you're talking about, but I have seen, assumptions like this. And oftentimes people misattribute or think things are mutually exclusive. You can love your grandma and also have a very practical, pragmatic understanding of death and not treat it with the same kind of sadness that someone else does. You can still have a curiosity and accept it as it's just a fact of life. Everybody's born, lives, dies. That's just the way nature is.
Right.
And I think autistic people are oftentimes a lot better at coming to terms with those types of things. And that can be very off-putting and offensive to non-autistic people.
Right.
And that can be interpreted as insensitivity or not caring. But they're not mutually exclusive. I can be very practical and matter of fact about the idea that somebody's dying and also love them deeply. So
it varies, right?
Exactly. And you have some people who are very, very passionate. Some people who will report that they don't have a lot of extreme emotions one way or another. They don't really, have a lot of intense feelings. The other thing that you will find oftentimes with autistic people is it's important to know how they communicate their love. So, in other words, some people might be all very, physically affectionate and using a lot of words. A lot of autistic people's love language is acts of service. So that person is there doing things for you, being there, delivering on expectations of, taking the garbage out, cooking
Right.
a meal, solving a problem. And that's often the way that people on the spectrum will show love. But again, it varies. I think I think maybe more extremes in the autistic world. But I know autistic people who love very passionately, love very deeply, and a lot of families are like, why can't they just get over this? Like, why can't my son or daughter just get over the breakup that happened 5 years ago? Or,
Right.
That friend who died, that was 15 years ago. Why won't they just get over it now?
Right.
And that autistic person is still feeling a great sense of loss and sadness and missing.
I agree. My nephew, who is the oldest in his family, he is very passionate about seeing me, and he communicates that on social media. There's some things that are, from an emotional standpoint, very important to him. He lets me know that.
You guys have a good relationship.
Yeah, and he is very, very loving, and I think that because the spectrum's so broad, and so I had this sent to me from a mom, and she says she's constantly on the International Council of Development and Learning. I guess they have a site, and they kind of talk about these things and these myths and these facts about autism, and she was a bit perplexed and confused because they were using the word autism as she felt a bad thing, about relationships and about autism itself, saying, I guess she was kind of put off that they were saying it's a fixed biological disorder, which she struggled with the word disorder,
Yeah. Well, to that point, sorry to cut you
Oh,
off,
no, you're good.
but to that point, autistic people often see interconnections and relationships that neurotypicals don't. And so you'll often hear, for example, a family saying, we got rid of our car 6 months ago, and my child is still upset and sad and mourning it. Or we moved to a new house, and my child is missing sadly their old house. Or I threw away their battery collection or their rubber band collection, and they cried for days. So here's the thing. Autistic people can be very sentimental, and they can see interconnections and relationships that other people can't.
Right.
And so we may mourn for the loss of an object. When I was a kid, I viewed books as literal friends. I had a relationship with my books and my boxes, and I loved them deeply. And for me, I can't speak for other people, but for me, there was an interconnection. I would stare at that book or that box and think about that person who made it. And if it was a family heirloom that had come from a family member, and their energy was imbibed in it. And so I was seeing connections between that box or that book that other people would just say, oh, this is just an object. So people on the spectrum can objectify less and see interconnections a lot more. And frankly, there's a lot of people who pay a lot of money to go to spiritual gurus to
Right.
actually reach that level of awareness and kind of consciousness. And so oftentimes that's what you see is people on the spectrum are very spiritually connected to their world.
Right.
And neurotypical people aren't understanding it. And so they call it a disorder.
Yeah.
Now,
Exactly.
I knew as a child um, that I had to keep my love of boxes and my passion for books, that I couldn't talk about those things the way that I felt about them because eyebrows and grades. So I knew that, so I just kept it to myself. But some kids don't care,
Right.
or just don't have that filter, or don't have an awareness that their perception is going to be perceived um, in a negative light by other people, and so it's just more obvious. But the problem is, a lot of times these researchers make assumptions about what that means. Oh, that person or a family member, that person cares more about their rubber band than they do about their grandma.
Right.
Um,
And that's not the
and
case, right?
exactly that. Just because that kid asked, what rigor mortis looks like in their grandma and cried when their rubber band collection, you know, disappeared, does not mean that person didn't love their grandma or or had put more importance to um, the rubber bands. We don't know. Like, I'm not saying they did or didn't, but those researchers and oftentimes families make a lot of assumptions that are way off base.
Do you think trust has something to do with that? You know, in not expressing, to a family member.
Yeah,
When you're thinking
yeah,
about your grandma and rigor mortis, you're not,
yeah,
you
yeah.
don't, you don't feel like you
Sometimes,
trust.
yeah, but sometimes I also think that it's a lot of times we lack the ability to express what's in our heads.
Mm,
I hear this all the time from adults now who report these things were going on in my head as a child, but I didn't have the words to, I couldn't get it out.
right.
Um, and I certainly know that in hindsight, I look back at my own life, and there was a lot going on in my head that I couldn't get out. And then there was also a lot that I had learned from society was not going to be okay to express. And so, yes, I would I'm gonna just keep that one quiet.
Yeah.
So I think, both things happen. I interrupted you though. What was this story about the lake? Because this is one of my high horses or my like rampages. But what was your
What was I?
story about the lady who she was upset
Oh,
about having it?
she she sent me an email, voicing her frustration about, some of these myths and facts, and some of them she agreed with, and these two were the ones that really stood out for her, because she was saying that it makes it hard to kind of navigate and you know kind of care for her child when she's hearing different things, and then the community gets involved, and basically, I don't want to say co-signing, but basically backing the article, which then you know she has to fight harder, and then she has to maybe pull back on some of the trust that she has in the community, which she thinks is support, but to her doesn't feel like it, when she's trying
Yeah,
to voice her concern about her
yeah.
kiddo. So,
I mean, she knows her child better than those researchers do,
right,
and and I think that like if she has an instinct or an intuition about her child, that's not to be dismissed. And there's plenty of research out there that's just not well done. I mean, when it comes to particularly, I mean, this is true of all science today, that you have to make sure that a study is reliable and valid. And when I read through studies on human beings, 8 to 9 out of 10 studies that I read, I'm like, this isn't reliable or valid.
Right.
Or both. It's like, this is not a well-designed study. This is not a study where they've made, good, variables, and they're really measuring what they say they're measuring. Love or emotions is a great example of that. A lot of studies that are done about that make assumptions about what love is. Love is abstract. How do you operationalize that in a study?
Right.
The assumptions that those researchers are making are often so far off because frankly, they don't understand autism, what it is.
Right.
And they're taking some sort of concrete measure of what love is, or what emotions are, what feelings are, and you can't really do that accurately. So there's a lot of not good studies out there about human beings,
Right. No.
frankly. And I'm not exaggerating when I look at these studies, and so many of them are not set up from the foundation to be good.
Right.
So,
and a lot of them rely on old information from long ago. And her name is Camille, and she's a listener of the show. And my response to her was, just be very careful what you read online and what you're getting sent to you. Like, make sure you do your homework and study. I don't know all there is to know about it. I'm still learning, as I navigate it as an advocate, but just be careful.
We're in a world where anybody can say anything.
Right.
And it's hard when you feel overwhelmed. My guideline for how I proceed, and my advice to families and other professionals, is to err on the side of least harm and least stigma when you are attempting an approach. So what I mean by that, for example, is if you've got a kid and you're like, he's lazy, he's non-compliant, he's got, oppositional defiance disorder, which I believe is in my opinion, is a very bad thing to say about a person, because all behavior is communication.
Right.
And if they're being quote unquote defiant, they're communicating something to us. So let's figure out how to reach them. But if you're not sure if your child's being lazy or manipulative or non-compliant, if you err on the side that person probably is having a communication issue, and for some reason probably has an inability to do what you want them to, you're going to do least harm and likely going to get greatest outcomes with an autistic person. Now, that's not true of all people. Sometimes, I've worked in the field of addictions and with people who have a lot of other issues going on, and sometimes you have to kind of think ahead of those people in different ways. But just assume as you're moving forward that it's because this person has some sort of issue, a sensory issue, a communication issue, and work through trying to figure that out first before you make the assumption that they're just being lazy, or that they just don't care.
Right.
Or that they, they're lying or whatever.
Right.
And it's not that autistic people can't manipulate. It's not that they can't lie. It's not that they can't be lazy. But most of the time, when I'm working with people on the spectrum and their families and schools, that's not what it is. It's that they don't understand something, or they're worried about something, and they haven't been able to communicate that in a way that people can understand to solve the problem. And 99% of the time, that's what it is.
I agree. I see that in, the schools, and, it's a process, and, it does take time, for sure.
Yeah, and I think it's very harmful when we just assume this person's being non-compliant, this person's lazy, this person wants to get under my skin and make me mad. No, they don't.
Right.
You're not frankly, you're not that important to them at that moment. They've probably got their own issue that they're dealing with.
Right.
That you just don't know about. And so I think it's really important to err on the side of misunderstanding, ruling out physical issues. I have a colleague here who very well respected doctor, developmental pediatrician who took care of kids on the spectrum here for years. And she once relayed to me that she had this kid come through who was just all sorts of destructive behaviors, tearing things up, just doing horrible things. And she went and she prescribed him a bunch of, this is years, ago and earlier in her career, prescribed him a bunch of like anti-anxiety or anti-aggression medications. And then comes to find out the poor kid has an ear infection.
Wow.
So err on the side of, is this person sick? Is this person having an emotional issue? Is this person having a communication issue? You have nothing to lose by, let's rule those things out first before you take this person's manipulative, or this person is insensitive and doesn't care, or is trying to make me mad. Because there's a lot of damage that can be done if you make those assumptions first. Right. And you really don't lose anything by ruling out the physical and the emotional and the communication and sensory things first.
Right. I completely agree. I think I hear, I hear folks say this a lot where they say, oh, they're pushing my buttons today. They're just trying to do this. They're not even trying. And, they haven't dug deep enough to see what's happening in that kid's life, to make that assumption.
They're making wild assumptions.
Yes.
Wild assumptions. And that kid can't defend himself.
No.
He was not in a position to be able to say, my head hurts, or the kid sitting next to me is poking me when you turn around and you don't know it.
Right.
And so, yeah, it happens all the time.
All the time, for sure.
Another issue in terms of myths that I think is really important just to address here is in terms of evaluation. A lot of times, people will go to get an evaluation by somebody who's not experienced in evaluating these not, kind of atypical situations, and they'll be like, "Oh, you can't be autistic because you drive, or you're married, you have kids, so it's you're in a relationship."
That's a big one, Toni. That's a big one.
Yeah, and that's simply not true. Again, nowhere in the DSM does it say, when it comes to evaluations, that marriage is mutually exclusive with autism. Nowhere does it say that driving is mutually exclusive with autism. These are wild assumptions that they're just not in alignment with what the official diagnosis is at all. Lots of people who are autistic are married. Lots of people who are autistic love other people. Lots of people who are autistic have good relationships, bad relationships, in between relationships.
Right.
Lots of people who are autistic have kids. There's a genetic component to autism. So you can bet that lots of people with autism, have kids. So
absolutely.
Those are not reasons to exclude a person. And if you go to somebody for an evaluation for your child or for yourself, and the person says, "Oh, you can't be autistic because you have kids, or because you want a boyfriend, or you are in a relationship," that person doesn't know what they're talking about, and you should find an evaluator who does.
Agreed. Absolutely. This has been a terrific topic here today. I couldn't agree with you more. I hope that the listeners were really tuned in to that last segment, because it is so important that you take the time and study and understand and make sure that you're getting this information from the right people. If you feel that you're not make your voices heard, because it is
Yeah.
very important. You
I got into autism as a career because like I was 16, 17, 18, and I started learning about autistic people. Then we thought it was very rare. Um, and I would listen to what the professionals said at that time. And I started working with autistic people. And I was like, my personal experience working with them was like, these people who are professionals saying what they're saying, they're wrong.
right,
Like, I can tell by my experience interacting with this person that um, these, things that the experts are saying are not right. This person does want to have a relationship. This person, um, I started working with kids, and it's like they're not, this person's not uncaring. They're just relating to the world in a different way. And so, just because somebody says they're, an expert, we've had throughout history, we've had experts in things who were flat out wrong. I mean, we used to think that the experts used to say that if you drove 100 miles in a car, that would kill you. I mean, there was also, there's, all sorts of, misunderstandings we've had. And it's when people are willing to be a little irreverent um, and question the societal, norms and conventions to say, is this really, does this really feel right? Or do we need to question this assumption?
right.
And that's, questioning assumptions is really important. I mean, it's why we have computers. It's why we're here today, because people said, we're not just going to make assumptions about how the world works. We're going to kind of push that boundary a little bit. And now we have this, technology and this ability for us to sit on opposite sides of the country,
Yeah,
and have this time each week together.
absolutely. Ask questions, folks. Ask questions. If you're not sure, don't just take somebody's word for it. Ask, study,
Yeah.
because sometimes it ends up being a sad and bad situation for you or for your child. So make sure that you're getting that information and that it's right for you. It's very important. Well, my friend, we've come to the end of the show here. What's on the agenda for you this week?
Well, this afternoon I'm going to go to the center um, and spend some time there during center hours. And I've got to get invoices done. They're long overdue. So my goal this week is to do that. Adrian has a camping trip towards the end of the week, and so I have to
Oh, wow.
Europe for
That's
that. And he's
good.
got an award ceremony too for his he passed a karate belt. So we've got a lot of little things like that. I've got to meet with my meet with a lawyer about just like special needs trust kinds of stuff
Mm,
that needs to be updated. So it's pretty busy with stuff like that.
wow.
Me.
Karate's a
How
good,
about
it's,
for you?
it's a good thing. I like that. Karate, that's pretty awesome.
So how
Um,
about you?
my week, just getting prepared for my trip, and more para work, working out, and I guess kind of deciding whether or not I'm going to promote the book here when I get back more. I've been asked to kind of do some things here in Washington State, and I've kind of politely said, you know, um, I'm not sure if I want to do that, but I'll think about it, but people
Yeah.
are saying you should do it, so I'm going to give that some thought this week. And it's just hard
How
promoting myself. It's just
it is.
difficult.
It is hard. I totally can relate to that. You've got your para work. How are you like preparing, or what's going to happen? Do you have a substitute coming in for you at school, or
So I'll only miss one day. it's the Tuesday, because I'll fly back that Tuesday, and so they'll have a substitute there, and the thing I think that we are struggling with, or I think most schools are struggling with right now, is the shortage of teachers and subs. It's really hard. I think a lot of them are worn down and worn out, and it's been pretty difficult to find substitutes and keep a consistent face in the building for students to get used to when a current teacher at the school is out. So luckily, I'll only miss that one day. I'll be back that Wednesday and pick back up. And I can say I've had a pretty good relationship with a lot of the kiddos, which is pretty neat. And again, I never saw myself as a paraeducator or a teacher in any regard, unless you're talking about golf. But being in the school, it's reminding me a lot of my childhood and my upbringing. So
I'll do that to you.
Yeah, it will.
For
sure.
Memories. And, yeah.
Absolutely.
For sure. Well, it'll be interesting to see, what you decide in terms of, promotions, like this internal work that we have to do with ourselves when we do a project like this book.
Yeah.
Where you really got to ask what's right for me, and what's right for, moving forward. And it's like only something you can decide.
Right.
So
I'll work through it. I'll get it. I'll figure it out for sure.
Yeah.
Well, that's it for the show today. I want to thank everybody for tuning in and for listening. Really appreciate the love and support. I hope that you're getting out in your communities this upcoming week, and make sure you check on your family and friends. Put a smile on someone's face. Doesn't take a lot of energy to do that at all. Thank you for listening to the Elijah Winfrey Show. Please be sure to download this show wherever you download your favorite podcast. Take care. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.